What if I told you that, just a week ago, a nation that the world had practically forgotten about is now once again at the center of global power, proving its critics wrong and even sending shockwaves through Washington? That's exactly what happened when Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney turned an apparent diplomatic slight into an incredible political win. Not too long ago, when President Donald Trump hosted European leaders and NATO allies at the White House after meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, Canada was deliberately left off the guest list. The omission wasn't subtle, and many political commentators quickly proclaimed that Canada had lost its significance. Headlines across various media outlets echoed the same sentiment, suggesting that Canada's presence on the world stage was rapidly diminishing. Opposition politicians seized this moment, arguing that this was proof that Canada was no longer a player on the international scene. But in just 4 days, Prime Minister Carney turned this narrative on its head. Instead of allowing the absence to define Canada's role, Carney transformed it into an opportunity to reassert Canada's global influence. He embarked on a whirlwind diplomatic tour across Europe, proving to the world that Canada is not sidelined, it is actively sought after and now more influential than ever. The tour kicked off in Kiev, Ukraine, on Ukraine's Independence Day, a significant date in the country's history. Carney made an unannounced appearance alongside Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. This wasn't just another diplomatic photo op, this was a serious statement. Canada pledged a substantial $2 billion in military aid to Ukraine, including armored vehicles, cutting-edge surveillance drones, and artillery systems. Officials in Kiev confirmed that this marked one of the largest single aid commitments outside of the United States, highlighting Canada's renewed commitment to global security. Zelensky himself praised Canada's involvement, saying, "Canada has proven that it is not just a partner, it is family, standing with us in the face of aggression." This visit was not just a symbol of support, but a bold move by Canada to position itself as a critical ally to Ukraine and a leader in European security. Analysts noted that Carney's visit was especially significant as he became the first leader of the G7 nations to visit Kiev during such an important holiday. While many other leaders hesitated, Canada stepped up. This courageous move resonated not only with Ukrainian officials but also with the Canadian public. According to a new Angus Reid poll released this week, 64% of Canadians now support a deeper involvement in Ukraine, a significant jump from 51% earlier this summer. A Ukrainian-Canadian business leader from Toronto summed up the sentiment. "This is the moment Canada demonstrates its values with real action, with strength." Following his visit to Kiev, Carney traveled to Berlin, where he met with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz to announce a landmark deal on critical minerals. This agreement directly connects Canada's mining production to Europe's automotive and defense industries, securing supplies of nickel, cobalt, and rare earth elements that are essential for the production of electric vehicles and renewable energy technologies. This deal is not just beneficial for Canada but for Europe as well, as it helps reduce Europe's heavy reliance on China, which controls over 80% of the global rare earth market. The partnership between Canada and Europe is seen as a major step towards securing critical resources and fostering economic independence from China. For Canada, this agreement represents a massive economic opportunity. In 2024, Canada exported $21 billion worth of critical minerals, and experts predict that this new agreement could increase exports by as much as 40% within 5 years. At the same event, Carney made another pivotal announcement. Canada's next-generation submarine fleet would be built in partnership with a German-Norwegian consortium, a deal worth over $60 billion. This marks not just the purchase of military hardware, but also the embedding of Canada within Europe's defense infrastructure. Media outlets in Germany have described this as evidence that Canada is now an integral player in Europe's defense supply chain, moving beyond just being a customer of defense products to a key partner in long-term security cooperation. As one senior German business official remarked, "Canada is no longer on the periphery, it is now at the heart of Europe's industrial operations." This sentiment captures the broader shift in Canada's global role, no longer viewed as a secondary or passive participant, but as a central player, actively shaping the future of both European and global security. By the time Carney arrived in Latvia, the impact of his visit was already undeniable. At the Adazi military base, surrounded by Canadian troops and flanked by NATO allies from more than a dozen countries, Carney made another landmark announcement. Canada would extend its commitment to NATO's Operation Reassurance, until 2029. This marks 4 more years of Canadian forces stationed on NATO's eastern flank, directly deterring Russian aggression. Carney's message was clear and resolute, echoing former U.S. President Ronald Reagan's famous phrase, "Trust but verify." Carney boldly declared that with Russian President Vladimir Putin, trust is no longer an option. "We cannot just trust but verify with Putin. We must deter and fortify," he said. This statement resonated deeply across Europe, and Latvian President Edgar Rinkevics praised Canada's unwavering resolve, stating, "When Canadian soldiers are stationed here, Latvians sleep easier. This commitment is invaluable." Additionally, Carney announced that Canada would invest 5% of its GDP into defense over the next decade. This represents a massive increase from current spending levels, with a financial shift worth hundreds of billions of dollars. According to the Parliamentary Budget Office, this move would result in an additional $26 billion annually starting in 2026, funding everything from new fighter jets to cyber defense and northern military bases. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg welcomed this shift, calling it a historic realignment that positions Canada as a cornerstone of collective defense. For Canadians watching back home, Carney's words carried significant emotional and strategic weight. As he put it, "In times of crisis, when people see the maple leaf on a sleeve, they see hope, and they receive help." His words struck a deep chord with Canadians, drawing applause from troops on the ground and generating widespread headlines in Canadian media. Celebrating Carney's leadership on the global stage, the rapid success of Carney's diplomatic tour has not gone unnoticed, especially in Washington. Officials from the U.S. government, speaking anonymously to Reuters, admitted that the White House had severely underestimated Carney's ability to command attention on the global stage. A senior Democratic senator even commented, "Trump tried to present Canada as absent, but Carney responded by showing up exactly where it mattered most." Even some Republican figures acknowledged the shift in momentum. Former U.S. defense official General David Petraeus told CNBC, "The message from Ottawa is unmistakable. Canada cannot be sidelined. Their active presence in Ukraine, Berlin, and Latvia makes that clear." But it wasn't just politicians who took notice. Business leaders are also beginning to realize the significance of Canada's changing role. According to the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, inquiries from European investors have surged by 23% since Carney's tour began. Mining companies in Quebec and Ontario are already receiving calls from German automakers eager to secure long-term contracts. Canadian defense firms, such as CAE and General Dynamics, are eyeing new opportunities tied to the multi-billion-dollar submarine and NATO procurement deals. This is not about waiting for a piece of the pie. Canada is actively securing its place in global supply chains, said Parn Batty, former trade minister and current CEO of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. On the ground in Canada, the response from ordinary citizens has been overwhelmingly positive. In Montreal, a veterans group praised the government's decision to extend Operation Reassurance, with one retired officer saying, "For too long, we've talked about values without action. Carney is finally putting muscle behind the maple leaf." Meanwhile, in Calgary, an energy executive remarked that the minerals deal with Germany could be as pivotal for Canada as NAFTA was in its time, helping diversify Canada's markets and reducing its vulnerability to U.S. political pressures. The phrase "Canada is back" began trending nationwide on social media, echoing Carney's own declaration made in Latvia. The figures back up this renewed sense of optimism. In 2024, Canada's defense spending was only at 1.3% of GDP, far below NATO's 2% target. But if Canada sticks to its plan to invest 5% of its GDP in defense over the next decade, it will become one of NATO's leading contributors, alongside the United States and the United Kingdom. Economists are confident that the country can meet this ambitious target. According to the Bank of Canada, federal revenues reached $467 billion in 2024, bolstered by resource exports and a robust labor market. Carney himself has argued that investing in defense also means investing in Canada's industries, creating jobs in shipyards, aerospace, and high-tech sectors. Beyond the hard numbers, Carney's tour has reset the global narrative about Canada. Instead of being a peripheral player, Canada is now viewed as a leader on the world stage. International media outlets, from the BBC to Le Monde, are now running stories about Canada's newfound prominence. In Warsaw, Polish officials credited Canada for its strong support of NATO's eastern flank. In Riga, local media referred to Canada as the Northern Shield, symbolizing the country's critical role in European defense. Even in Brussels, diplomats were quick to praise Carney's efforts, calling him the most active Canadian leader in Europe in decades. This shift in perception marks a significant departure from the narrative of Canada as a secondary player to the United States. Rather than merely relying on its geographic proximity to the U.S., Canada is now asserting itself as a central force in both European security and global economic affairs. For U.S. officials, the optics are difficult to ignore. Carney's ability to mobilize support and reaffirm Canada's importance on the global stage has left the Trump administration with little room to maneuver. By leaving Canada off the guest list for the NATO summit, the U.S. inadvertently gave Canada the opportunity to write its own story, and Carney seized that opportunity with remarkable success. As one anonymous U.S. diplomat told Politico, "By excluding Canada, we allowed them to craft their own narrative, and they did so brilliantly." The shift in global perception of Canada is nothing short of remarkable. The country, which just a few months ago seemed to be on the sidelines, is now at the forefront of European security and international diplomacy. The strategic choices made by Prime Minister Carney and the way he has conducted himself have created a new narrative about Canada's place in the world. This transformation is not just a political victory, it is a symbol of Canada's ability to redefine its role on the global stage. Canada is no longer just a passive participant in international affairs. It is a key player, making bold decisions and taking decisive actions to secure its future. This is a country ready to shoulder more responsibility and face the challenges of the modern world with strength and resolve. Carney's leadership has also sparked a sense of pride among Canadians. The country's commitment to NATO, its significant investments in defense, and its role in the global energy transition have all played a part in reshaping the national narrative. For the first time in years, Canadians are seeing their country assert itself in the international arena, demonstrating that Canada's values and principles are not just words on paper, but actions backed by concrete steps. In addition to strengthening Canada's military alliances, Carney's policies are also designed to diversify Canada's economy and reduce its dependence on the United States. The deal with Germany on critical minerals is a prime example of how Canada is positioning itself to benefit from the global transition to renewable energy. As the world moves towards electric vehicles and clean technologies, Canada's vast reserves of rare earth minerals make it a vital player in securing these resources for the future. This shift away from reliance on the U.S. the market is a strategic move that is already paying dividends. Canada's exports to the European Union reached $100 billion in 2024, a 7% increase from the previous year. By diversifying its trade relationships and engaging more deeply with Europe and other international partners, Canada is proving that it can thrive without relying solely on the U.S. Furthermore, Carney's decision to invest heavily in defense has garnered widespread support across Canada. While some critics have raised concerns about the financial burden of these commitments, the majority of Canadians are rallying behind the idea of a stronger, more self-reliant nation. A NANO's research survey released in late August revealed that 58% of Canadians support higher defense spending, even if it means higher taxes or a larger national deficit. This strong public backing reflects the growing recognition that in an increasingly uncertain world, Canada must be prepared to step up and play a leading role in global security. Canada's newfound prominence on the world stage has also sparked discussions about the country's future role in shaping global politics. No longer content to be just a quiet neighbor to the U.S., Canada is positioning itself as a central player in global affairs. Whether it's securing energy resources, strengthening defense alliances, or leading efforts to combat climate change, Canada is showing that it is ready to meet the challenges of the 21st century head-on. This shift in Canada's global standing also has important implications for its domestic policies. As the country invests more in defense and diversifies its trade relationships, the government is also taking steps to ensure that the benefits of this new role are felt at home. New jobs are being created in industries such as aerospace, defense manufacturing, and high-tech research. In addition, the expansion of Canada's resource exports to global markets is helping to ensure long-term economic stability. While there are still challenges ahead, Carney's leadership has put Canada on a path toward a more secure and prosperous future. The country's growing role in European defense, its commitment to the global transition to clean energy, and its strengthening economy are all signs that Canada is no longer the quiet observer it once was. In Washington, the implications of Carney's rise are starting to sink in. The U.S., once seen as the unquestioned leader of the Western world, now faces a more assertive and confident Canada, one that is no longer content to be a secondary player. This new dynamic has the potential to reshape the balance of power in North America and beyond, with Canada stepping up to shoulder more of the responsibility for global peace and security. The White House's failure to recognize Canada's growing importance in the global arena is now a glaring oversight. By excluding Canada from the NATO summit, the U.S. inadvertently gave Canada the opportunity to define its own narrative. And with that opportunity, Canada has made it clear that it is a country to be reckoned with. This transformation is about more than just politics, it is about identity. For Canadians, this is a moment of national pride, a time when the country is stepping up and proving its worth on the world stage. As Carney himself put it during his visit to Latvia, Canada is back. And with that, the message is clear. Canada is stronger, more influential, and ready to take on the challenges of the future. Canada's resurgence is not just a passing moment, it is the beginning of a new era for the country. An era where Canada is no longer the quiet observer, but a proactive and powerful force on the world stage. The journey from being written off to being recognized as a global leader is complete. And for Canadians, the future has never looked brighter.